It was just a flat tire on the side of the road. Nothing unusual. But when a lonely man named Walter pulled over to help a stranded young woman named Lena, he had no idea his entire life was about to change. The next morning, a sleek black SUV showed up at his front door, and what happened next will restore your faith in humanity. Welcome back to HAI Stories, where real moments reveal powerful lessons. In today's story, you'll meet Walter, a man who lost everything: his family, his future, his dignity. But one simple act of kindness sparked a chain of events so heartwarming, so unexpected, it feels like a miracle. Stay with us as we uncover a story that proves it's never too late for a second chance. And sometimes, all it takes is helping the right person at the right time. This is one story you won't want to miss. Walter's life had never been easy. From a young age, the odds were stacked against him. He grew up in a broken home, abusive parents, constant yelling, and more bruises than birthdays. By the time he was 10, Walter had already run away more times than he could count, bouncing between foster homes that only added to his pain. By his late teens, Walter had fallen into the wrong crowd. Drugs, bad decisions, and a long list of regrets followed him into adulthood. Eventually, the addiction cost him everything: his job, his marriage, and the chance to raise his 2 children. Years later, Walter was clean, but alone. He lived in a small, run-down house on the edge of town. His only friend was his neighbor, Mr. Elliot, who had helped him through the worst of his addiction. Thanks to Elliot's support, Walter had landed a part-time job at a local pizza shop. It wasn't glamorous, but it paid the bills and gave him a reason to get out of bed. Walter had made peace with the idea that life wouldn't offer him any miracles. He had no family left, no big dreams, just quiet days and quiet nights. Then one late evening, while driving home after a long shift, he spotted a car pulled over on the side of a dark country road. A young woman was struggling to change a flat tire, using her phone flashlight to see. Walter considered driving past. He was tired, and his favorite TV show was about to start. But something told him to stop. Just this once. He pulled over, unaware that this single act of kindness was about to open a door he thought had been closed forever. Walter parked his old, rusty pickup truck a few feet behind the woman's car and gently honked to get her attention. She turned, startled at first, but then cautiously relaxed as she saw the tired, weathered man approaching with a kind smile. "You've got a flat?" he asked softly. "Yeah. Picked up a nail or something." The young woman sighed, brushing hair from her face. Her name was Lena. She looked barely in her 20s, dressed casually, her hands shaking slightly from frustration and the cold. "Mind if I help?" Walter asked. Lena hesitated. It was late. The road was empty, and strangers could be dangerous. But something in Walter's voice, humble, calm, and genuine, told her she could trust him. As Walter crouched down to work the jack, he started small talk to ease the tension. He told her he worked the night shift at a pizza shop, that his back wasn't what it used to be, and that she reminded him of someone he once knew. In return, Lena shared that she'd just left to get together with friends and was headed home when the tire blew. Little by little, they opened up more. Walter found himself talking more than usual about the mistakes he'd made, the family he lost, and the loneliness he'd come to accept. It wasn't like him to say so much, especially to a stranger. But Lena listened, really listened, and that meant more than she knew. Within 20 minutes, the tire was fixed. Walter stood up, brushing dirt off his hands. "I really enjoyed talking to you," he said with a warm smile. Then, without waiting for thanks, he tipped his cap, got in his truck, and drove off into the night. Lena stood there for a moment, watching the taillights disappear. She didn't know exactly why, but something about that man had touched her heart. She knew this wasn't the end of their story. The next morning, Walter woke up feeling better than usual. There was something about last night that lingered with him, not just the satisfaction of helping someone, but the rare joy of real conversation. He hadn't felt that human in years. It was his day off, so he took it slow. He watered the dying plants in his yard, did a small load of laundry, and even cleaned the dusty windows in his kitchen. By noon, he had settled on the couch with a hot cup of coffee and an old comedy show playing softly on the TV. Then came the knock. At first, he thought he imagined it. No one ever visited Walter, except for Mr. Elliot now and then. The knock came again, firmer this time. Curious, Walter shuffled to the door and opened it, and froze. In front of him stood a well-dressed man in a navy blue suit, polished shoes, and a warm but serious expression. Behind him, parked in the driveway, was a sleek black SUV. Two more men stood beside it, watching silently. "Are you Walter?" the man asked. "Yes," Walter replied, eyebrows furrowed. "My name is Grant. I'm here on behalf of my younger sister, Lena." Walter's eyes widened. "She got home safely, I hope?" Grant smiled. "She did. And she hasn't stopped talking about the kind old man who helped her on the side of the road. Said you reminded her of our late father." Walter gave a sheepish chuckle. "I just did what anyone would have done." "Well, she doesn't agree. She asked me to find you and deliver this." Grant handed Walter a white envelope. As soon as he felt its weight, Walter knew it was money. A lot of it. I can't accept this," Walter stammered, trying to hand it back. "Please," Grant said gently. "It's not just the money. Lena wants to thank you properly." She insisted. Walter's eyes welled with tears. No one had done anything like this for him in decades. And Grant wasn't finished. "One more thing," he added. "You once mentioned you dreamed of working at Hawthorne Industries, right?" Walter nodded slowly. "Well, there's an opening. And I've already put in a word for you." Walter stood speechless at the door, clutching the envelope in one hand, his other trembling slightly. For years, he'd survived on scraps of income, scraps of hope, scraps of connection. Now, this man, this stranger, was offering him more than kindness. He was offering a second chance. I don't know what to say," Walter whispered, his voice cracking as tears ran down his weathered cheeks. "Then don't say anything," Grant replied with a smile. "Just send us your resume. The position comes with 3 months of paid training, and I've already spoken to the hiring manager. You've got a shot." Walter stepped back, overwhelmed, motioning Grant inside. "At least let me make you a cup of coffee." "I'd love that," Grant said. Over hot mugs and quiet conversation, Walter learned that Lena had flown out of the country that morning but promised to visit him the moment she returned. "She's stubborn," Grant chuckled. "She says she won't rest until you're treated like family." That word, family, hit Walter harder than he expected. It had been so long since he'd been seen that way. For months later, Walter's world was unrecognizable. He was now working full-time at Hawthorne Industries, wearing a name badge with pride, showing up early and staying late. Not because he had to, but because he wanted to. The money from Lena helped him move into a clean, modest home in a better neighborhood. But Walter didn't go alone. He brought Mr. Elliott and his family with him. "You're the only family I've got," he told them. "And I'm not going anywhere without you." And true to her word, Lena stayed in touch. She and Grant visited often, checking in on Walter, inviting him to family dinners, even celebrating his birthday, a date no one had remembered in years. Walter, once forgotten by the world, had found himself again, all because he chose to stop for someone else. Sometimes, life surprises us in the most unexpected ways. Walter didn't have much, no wealth, no status, no family to call his own. But in one simple moment of kindness, he changed someone's night. And in return, someone changed his entire life. This story reminds us that no good deed is ever truly small. You never know what someone is going through, or how deeply your kindness might touch their heart. Walter didn't expect anything in return. He wasn't looking for praise or reward. But by simply choosing compassion over convenience, he opened the door to a new beginning. Many of us go through seasons of loneliness, regret, or loss. But hope has a way of finding its way back, sometimes when you least expect it, sometimes when you're just changing a tire on the side of the road. If this story moved you, made you smile, or reminded you of the power of human connection, we'd love to hear from you. Speech balloon. Comment below with one word that captures how this story made you feel. And if you haven't already, subscribe to HAI Stories for more powerful, heartfelt stories that celebrate everyday people and extraordinary moments. Your support means the world to us, and it helps us keep sharing stories that matter. Until next time, take care of each other, because kindness always comes back around.